Okay, when you get the sight out of the package, the quiver adapter plate and the two standoffs and the long mount screws are what you'll want to use if you're planning on using a quivalizer or any other one-piece bow-mounted quiver. So I've got it ready here. And as is the case with any screws going into your bow, you don't want to over tighten. And it is okay to Loctite these screws too if you want. But go until it stops and then just give it another 1/8 of a turn or so and you're going to be pretty good shape. Once that's bolted on the bow, the first thing you're going to want to do is sight in using the elevation and the windage gang adjustments for your 20-yard setting. Now you can use the sight-in tape, which I'll show in a separate video. On this sight, I've already got a tape on this sight, so I'm going to show you. So I basically would roll it all the way to the top, have it at the 20, and then I'll flip the fixed pins open, and then I'll take a couple of practice shots. Take several shots if needed to make sure you know how far you need to adjust. So if we're making elevation adjustments, of course, you just loosen this screw, and this will click adjust up or down. If you hit the bottom of the travel or the end of the travel, then you can remove the bolt and move it into the next hole, and it will give you another 1/4 inch or so of travel. The same is the case for the windage, which is adjusted here. Now, one thing you need to remember is if the mover pin is adjusted right here, you won't be able to access that bolt. All you need to do is roll it out of the way, either lower or higher, and then you will need to use one of the Allen wrenches that's applied with the sight, or a standard L-shaped Allen wrench to access this one. And that one also has separate holes, so if you need more travel, left or right, you just pull the bolt out, put it in the next hole. If you end up sighting in and your sight is quite a ways off from center here, from the 0 setting, like say this is, then I'm going to show you the other way. So this sight is obviously moved down almost a 1/4 of an inch, not quite. So I prefer to have it set almost at 0 when it's sighted in. So because of that, I will move this sight using the second axis adjustments, these 4 bolts right here. So if I loosen these, you can loosen 2 opposing ones, and then of course hold on to the sight head while you loosen the other 2. And then once this is loose, then I can actually move it down 1 and put it back in the next holes down. Now that I've moved this up 1 set of holes, I'm going to move this back up to where it's about flush. Lock that down. Again, these don't need to be over tightened. So once they're snug, just go like an 1/8 of a turn more. And the next step is going to be setting the second axis. So basically on the second axis, I'm wanting to make sure that the pins are vertical when my bow is vertical. If you don't have an actual level to level the bow in a vise, it's very easy to set this. Now this particular bow has the same cams top and bottom, so that makes it very easy because the string is the same distance from the limb on each side, which means that the string is going to be perfectly vertical when your bow is perfectly vertical. So you can just line up the pins. If they're not quite lining up, then what you do is you adjust it right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the top 2 about just a fraction, about a 1/16 of a turn. And then I'm going to tighten the bottom two the same amount. And as you do that, it's going to level the sight this direction. So you can keep making those adjustments until it lines up perfectly with your string. And then you're going to be leveled for your second axis. Once you are, just give each one of these another little snug down. Again, they don't have to be over tight. And then you're set for your second axis level. One of the nice features on the option sight is that you can actually sight in your third axis so that your bow is leveled for uphill and downhill shooting. So I'm actually doing that right here off of my deck because I'm able to shoot down, but you may have to go set up a target where you can shoot down a fairly steep hill or up a fairly steep hill. So after your second axis has already been leveled and you have your bow pretty well sighted in on level ground, then you will want to make sure your third axis is right. The third axis is adjusted with these two screws, this screw right here and this screw right here. And the way you can sight in is if you shoot downhill or uphill and you're hitting either left or right as compared to when you're shooting on the level, when you hold your level bubble in the level position, then what you need to do is adjust this one way or the other. So again, like we did on the second axis, if you loosen this screw just like a 1/16 of a turn and tighten this one about a 1/16 of a turn, you're going to adjust your level this way. And if you do it the other way around, if you tighten this one, loosen this one, then of course you're going to level it this way. That's going to allow you to sight in for your up and downhill leveling. When you're setting your fixed pins on the option sight, the nice thing is you don't even have to shoot your bow to get your fixed pins sighted in. Once you have your sight tape figured and you have the correct sight tape on here and have checked it at all yardages, then to sight in your fixed pins, all you need to do is adjust your mover pin to 20, then draw your bow back. Well, first you close the pins, of course, then draw your bow back, look through the pins, and make sure that the 20 is right behind your 20-yard pin. And then you'll do the same thing for 30. You'll adjust it to 30, look through the pins, make sure the 30 is right behind your 30-yard pin. Obviously, to get that to work, you're going to need to adjust the fixed pins. So I'm going to show you a couple tricks with adjusting the new fixed pins. These are the S-series fixed pins. So they're the new machined pins. So if you want to adjust one of them, obviously you just loosen this screw right here, and many times you'll need to loosen it a couple full turns and then press down on the Allen wrench and it will pop it out of the track slightly. And then just slide your fingers down close to the bottom, and I like to hold another finger on the back of the pin and then you can slide it. And if you need to wiggle it back and forth a little bit, because it is a snug fit, it's done with very tight tolerances. So then you just can slide it to right where you need it. And then while you tighten it down, I like to hold my finger right on the back, just holding that pin perfectly straight. And then again, on these especially, you don't need to tighten them very tight at all. Once it feels snug, once it's snugged at the bottom, just give it like another, maybe 1/8 of a turn. Then just wiggle it with your finger and make sure it doesn't wiggle. If there's any wiggle in it, then you need it to be a little bit tighter. But it's not uncommon for these pins to, if you just loosen it like a half a turn, it's not uncommon for them to not want to slide. You need to loosen them 2 to 3 turns and then push down on it to slide it back out of the bottom of the track. And then again, like I said, if you have your finger on the bottom side while you're sliding it and get your finger right down next to the head here to slide it up and down, then it makes it a lot easier to adjust them and to make sure that you get them locked down perfectly straight. And then once they're all locked down in position, they'll be facing your eye perfectly and you can have your spacing just right. The pins are very bright. I'm Dan Evans, and I design all the Option Archery products.